Good morning or good afternoon, whenever you may be accessing this. If I look a little exasperated, it's because this is now my third attempt at running this loom successfully. For various different reasons, it hasn't worked so far. Third time's the charm. So, I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're enjoying the lovely weather we've been having. Hopefully, it cools down a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to melt. What we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at Killing Eve. We're going to look specifically at Killing Eve Season 1, Episode 1, the first 6 minutes. That's literally all we're going to look at today. In fact, what we're going to look at within this loom is going to be the first, I think, like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. It's a tiny little portion, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it for a as a springboard to remind you about some of the key aspects of media, and then I'm going to subdivide the key aspects. We're going to look at how you might start analysing a media text on your own, because realistically, at hire, that's something you should be able to do. Before I get started, I have uploaded this with the in Show My Homework, there was a URL for a booklet. If you didn't take media with me at National 5, then I expect you to read through that booklet. Even if you took media with me at National 5 and you've already read that booklet, I expect you to read it again realistically, because it will just remind you about the 7 key aspects, what they are and where they are. But if you didn't take media with me last year, you need to put, and you haven't read the booklet already, it was explicit when I put it into the Show My Homework. But if you haven't read that booklet already, you need to pause this and you need to go and read that booklet. It will be worth a lot less to you, and you'll struggle a lot more with it. Okay. I should also highlight I am sorry that we didn't have a class conference call yesterday. It's actually, now that we're starting analysing some media, it's much more difficult to do that on a conference call, because I need you to be able to pause the presentation, go away and do your thing, come back and be like, okay, I've watched it over now what's he saying? And then you can be like, oh, it's this, pause, go back. You need to be able to cut between them. You can't do that on a conference call. It will not work. So I am still hoping to run a conference call every week now that I've realised that issue, starting next week. But there is no guarantee. I will just have to keep you up to date. This week, I'm hoping to release another Loom video, kind of almost the second half of this lesson, on Thursday or Friday. And you'll still have a week to complete the task. Don't worry, I'm not going to say we'll release it on Friday and then say you have to have it done by Tuesday. I'll still give you a week. You'll always have 6 days at least to complete any task that I set on a Loom call. In today's lesson, what you're going to need is something to write with, something to write on. So pen, paper, pencil, cardboard, blackboard with chalk, crayon, I don't care. Just as long as you have something to take notes with. And something on which to view Killing Eve. This one isn't necessarily... Ooh, what's that? Turns out I don't know how to use Loom, apparently, because that was weird. This one is not necessarily... You don't, strictly speaking, need to be able to watch Killing Eve while you watch this Loom. It would probably be helpful for you to be able to cut back and forth and see what I'm talking about. But if you only have one device and it's either this or Killing Eve, then obviously just finish the Loom, then watch Killing Eve and look over your notes. That's fine. Right, let's get rid of me. So, a few bits and bobs first. Learning intention. You will learn how to consolidate your knowledge of what the 7 key aspects are. You should already know what they are. By this point, after that introduction, key aspects. Come on, Mr. Corbett. Do it better. What the 7 key aspects are. After that introduction, you should have gone away and read the booklet. All right, let me be completely clear. If you have got this far and you still haven't read the booklet and you weren't in my National 5 class last year, I'm concerned, hypothetically concerned, because obviously I won't know. Then you'll be going on to learn how these key aspects apply to Killing Eve, specifically the opening of Season 1, Episode 1. And your success criteria is that you will be able to, with help, identify some of the key features of media content at work when meeting Villanelle. Media content is a reasonably new term to all of us, I would imagine, so that's what we'll be covering today. You'll also be able to apply the knowledge that you gain from us looking at Villanelle to work on your own, identify the key media content features at work when we meet Eve. Because this is digital learning, I'm integrating a few key symbols and rules that will help alert you to when you need to write something down or do something. If I want you to copy something, then it'll be written in this lovely shade of lilac-y purple with this copy symbol somewhere up the top, okay, somewhere up here, just to remind you. And if there's a task, it'll be in this rather ominous shade of red with this delightful wee task symbol again somewhere up the top. So that you know that if you see either of them, you need to pause it and either copy something down or pause it and complete a task. My plan is still to put out a loom every Wednesday like this one and do a lesson every Tuesday. The lesson will build on the information in the loom presentation. I'll give you some time to ask any questions. We'll look over some of the work that you guys have sent in. And finally, I'll use the presentation, the kind of class, as if you will, to present you with a few more ideas to prepare you for the loom that will come up the next day. That's the plan. Might not happen. As you can see this week, sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes I'll just have to try and release 2 looms in a week. Okay. So let's give it a go. In a previous PowerPoint, we discussed what media stood for, which you should already know. We brought it into the 7 key aspects. I have asked you to read over that booklet. So at this stage, if you do not know what the 7 key aspects are, you really need to start questioning if you are in the right place. All right. Because I've given you every opportunity, we have talked about it, and you have been told to take the opportunity to read up on it. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to write down to the best of your ability what you remember about the 7 key aspects, or maybe more simply, what the 7 key aspects are. Okay, you don't have to tell me much more about it, but I'll start you off with one. You might put down, okay, firstly, we have categories. Brilliant. Okay, what else do we have? What are the other 6? So pause this presentation and write that down. All right. At this stage, you've had time to write it down and to pause the presentation more accurately, write it down and unpause me. So, the 7 key aspects are language, society, audience, categories, representation, institutions, and narrative. Okay. Now, I should have swapped this around, frankly, but for our purposes, we're going to break the 7 key aspects down into 2 groups: content and context. 4 of these key aspects go into content. The 4 that you would most associate with the actual creation of the media, rather than the planning or reception or influences over that media. So, and now you can see nicely in red, so it is a task. Because you are all intelligent people, you should be able to work out which of these 7 key aspects are most likely to come under content, i.e. which are most likely to apply to the creation of a piece of media. I want you to leave a line, write media content, and then write down which 4 of the 7 key aspects you think come under content. All right, you should have done that by now. This first bit's in purple. It was maybe not the best color to choose. It's a little bit difficult to see that. But I want you to copy down from media to narrative. See, copy. Media content is defined as the language, categories, representation, and narrative in a piece of media. So you should already have, at worst, a basic knowledge of these terms from National 5 Media, S3 Media, or studying a media text in English. If you don't, then you should have read the attached booklet. It is also on Teams and on Show My Homework, I think, at this stage. And if you cannot find it, then email me and I will send you the link. The booklet should be familiar to you all. It outlines briefly what the 7 key aspects are. If you are at all uncertain, read the booklet. I'm not going to talk about the booklet again today because I feel like I have done enough. But if you come to me and you go, I have no idea about blah, 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 and it's in the booklet, I will go spare in a very polite and calm way because I actually rarely go spare, but I will be annoyed. So one of the elements that we're going to be looking at is language. If you've taken media with me before, you will know this. This is a recap, nothing more. Media, when we're talking about language, we're referring to the media techniques that are in use during the creation of a piece of media. Specific decisions made during the filming process that edit that filming process or impact that filming process, such as mise-en-scène, lighting, sound, color, acting, anything that is deliberately done while we are filming. Okay, It could be costume, it could be props, anything like that. That's all media language. This is one of the key aspects that I will expect you to use when you analyze a piece of media. So you need to ensure that you know it well. In fact, for this one, for language, you need to make sure you know it inside out and backwards, because the basic language we used in S3 and National 5 is just going to be the foundations of what we talk about this year. This year, we'll also look at some more complex media language. Once I'm back in the school, I will put out the National 5 language PowerPoint. It's primarily focused on Black Panther, but it does have a number of GIFs and whatnot. So that if you are at all uncertain, you can recap that information yourselves. And then this year we'll go on and look at some more complicated techniques, but not today. Then another content-based area is representation. So sorry, I should have said language counts as media content because it's all about how the media is put together, how that piece of media is put together, right? That's literally what we're talking about. When we look at these different elements, we're looking at the elements that define the piece of media and how it is perceived. When we're looking at representation, we're talking about how a certain person, group, event, or place is being portrayed. Is it positive or negative, sympathetic or critical, good or evil, right or wrong? There's a lot more to representation than just these vague general labels, but representation is incredibly important. When we are presented with a character, we are generally meant to think something about that character, be it positive or negative, and that all comes down to their representation. Representation tends to be very closely tied to societal views. If society is sympathetic, the representation might well be too. You would be unlikely to get a movie about Hitler where Hitler was portrayed in a sympathetic light, because people wouldn't like that. You'd be less likely, not than that, just less likely than general kind of movies, to get a movie about the KKK where the KKK was presented in a sympathetic light, because again, people wouldn't like it. Most people wouldn't like it. So when you're thinking about representation, it's a good idea to also think about why a certain thing is being represented in that way, and whose views is it expressing. Representation skews societal responses as well. This is where it gets much more interesting. It goes hand in hand with society, and it's almost a symbiotic relationship. Representation is impacted by what society thinks, but then representation can also help impact what society thinks. So it goes back and forth. Audience responses. So representation. If you misjudge something, you represent someone who should be sympathetic as a villain, your audience won't like it, and so it impacts on the entire narrative. It's a crucial element of media, and it is one of the more interesting elements of media to study. Then we have narrative. The narrative of the story is exactly what it sounds like. It's what the story is about. How does the story fit together? Now, if you've taken media before, you know there are a lot of nuances in this area. Many different theories about what a story requires and should have. You can talk about Todorov, Barth, and Strauss, things like that. There are a number of different people who have talked about narrative in a very interesting way. And we will recap those different areas, and then we will look at some narratives and how they work. Okay. Now, there are three out of the four elements of media content that we are going to look at today. You'll notice I haven't put in categories yet. Categories is at higher a little bit more complex. We'll be starting to bring in elements such as style and the impact that directors can have on a piece of media. And that's incredibly important, because the impact that a director can have should help you start to analyze your own creative input and impact into your assignment. And that's going to be much easier to do in class. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you the level of detail that you should be able to achieve in your analysis by looking at our introduction to Villanelle in Killing Eve. Now, when I say you should be able to achieve, I want to make it clear, I do not expect you to reach the level of detail that we are putting into this analysis for every scene. But for key scenes, you should be able to. So today, together, we're going to go over and look at Villanelle, and then as homework, you will look at Eve and our introduction to Eve Pilastri. You'll notice there's not a conference call. There was not a conference call yesterday, I should have said. I'll be using one presentations predominantly this week because it will allow you to refer to the media, as I said. When breaking down language in media, it's important to do two things. What's being done? Why is it being done? If you answer both of these questions, you'll start to drill down to the bedrock of how to analyze language. It sounds simple, and it actually, it is simple. Once you get the technical terms, once you get your understanding there, it really isn't too difficult to analyze language in the media. Okay. Now, the third thing I put in here that apparently I decided not to put in the other one is the impact. So what's being done? Why is it being done? What is the impact of it? So for instance, if we were to talk about sound. Okay. Now, guys, this is where not having this on in the class is a right nightmare. What I would actually suggest you do now is you watch the first kind of scene of Killing Eve, if you can, just from the introduction outside the cafe to where Eve knocks the ice cream on the little girl, walks out the parlour smiling, and crosses the street, and then it cuts to the title. Okay, that's all I want you to watch just now. Brilliant. I realise again that's not enough time for you to watch it, but you should have paused this and watched it. If you can't do that, don't worry. So the first thing I want to talk about is sound. Specifically, we're going to look at diegetic sound, which is sound that has originated from within the world on the screen. So what's happening? There's minimal diegetic sound in the opening. We actually don't hear very much at all. There isn't that much to be heard. What this does is, so why is that being done? Well, it's been done to force us to focus on the music and the subtle actions of the screen of what is going on. And the impact of this is that we're more likely to notice details such as the blood on our watch or her mirroring the action of the ice cream salesman. Things that are maybe slightly more subtle. If we had an ongoing conversation, our focus would be split. As it is, we are very intently watching Villanelle and watching what she does. Now, this is National 5. Everything we're doing here, if you did at National 5, would get you marks. This is where it starts to hit that higher area. It's also useful to be able to connect these into the other elements of 7 key aspects. So, if we're talking about language, specifically sound, what we could then say is this instantly starts to suggest that someone who struggles with human connection and real emotions and has encountered violence, perhaps even a psychopath. And what we're looking at there is maybe a suggestion as to character, establishing character being a key part of the equilibrium of a narrative. That is what you need to be able to do at higher. Knowing what's what is all well and good, but higher you get your marks for making connections between the 7 key aspects. We are predominantly just going to focus on the understanding just now, but handy to think about. By the way, this is going to be more like a lecture than anything else, because just for this kind of PowerPoint, I need you guys to remember what the 7 key aspects are. That's it. That's all I need from you today. So that's why this is going to be mainly me talking. Obviously, it's going to be entirely me talking, but there won't be too many tasks until the end, just because I want to cover the key information I need you to have before we move forwards. So we can move on, and then we can look at things like non-diegetic sound. So what non-diegetic sound is there? There's music, and it is expectations sung by unloved. And then we ask ourselves, okay, why this song? This is a song about never living up to someone else's expectations. It's about the extremes of emotion, love or hate, and about never really knowing people. It poignantly ends with the phrase, "You haven't a clue who I am," in this opening. It's also a song that is sung by a woman. The lead singer is in a band of 3 people, her and 2 men. So the impact, once we understand this, is that the song actually contains many of the major ideas explored in the show. The extremes of emotion, how love and hate sometimes overlap, how difficult it is to truly know someone, and more obviously, especially with that you haven't a clue who I am, the hunt for Villanelle. And then we do our connection. Okay? So that's all language, that's us looking at sound and kind of starting to pick apart why that song has been used and what the impact is. And then we can say, okay, what's the impact on a greater scale? Let's look at society. This show is rightfully lauded as a work of feminism. The song is female sung in a female-led band to introduce a strong female character. And this is to tie in with the hashtag #MeToo. Okay, it is the Me Too movement that came out while this show was in its planning and preparation stage. And we'll talk a lot more about Me Too in our next one. You could have talked about camera angle. Okay, so, and guys, I realize this might be like, it's just going through everything. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Because you need to be able to pick apart this scene very, very cleanly. Because what you're going to do is you're going to pick apart our introduction to Eve. And I expect a really good level of depth and detail. So, what do we see? Mainly we see some medium shots, but there is a close-up of Villanelle, then the ice cream vendor, and then Villanelle again. There's also a close-up of her watch with blood on it. Why? The medium shots is a little bit more obvious. It allows us to see the characters, meet the characters, see where they are, understand a little bit about them. It's nothing special. But the close-up on Villanelle attempting to engage the young girl and failing shows her failure to connect. She struggles with human connection. Close-up on the vendor with the broad, genuine smile, it shows her focusing on him. It gives a very good kind of focus on his smile, the kind of broad teeth showing very big, genuine smile. And she sees that he gets a response from the young girl. And then the close-up on her and her new smile shows that she's adapting and she's learning. Right? And then finally, the close-up on the watch draws our attention to the blood. And the impact of this is it establishes character. It establishes Villanelle as someone who has trouble connecting, and it also emphasizes blood, suggesting a sinister nature. Okay. Someone who struggles to connect like that, who has to copy other people's reactions and emotions, we're starting to think psychopath, especially with the blood. Other key aspects that we could link this to is narrative. A character is being established along with an equilibrium. Okay, we're starting to understand that she's maybe a bit of a loner. She's sitting in this cafe herself alone. She's maybe trying to connect with other people, although we suddenly realize not very hard, and we wonder why she was trying to get a smile from the girl in the first place. But all of this is establishing a character and an equilibrium. And again, that's the level of depth you could look at for just one element of language. And then there's lots of other things you could talk about. I'm not going to go over them forever and ever because it would get very boring for all of us. I should have a timer on it. I want to know how long I'm going on for. So some amalgamated ones. Acting. When Villanelle was looking at the ice cream vendor, she didn't look pleased. She looked observant, but also maybe a little bit critical, almost jealous maybe, or annoyed or angry. Acting when she knocks the ice cream onto the little girl, reinforcing a darker, more sinister side, also establishing maybe a slightly comedic or alternative tone. The font towards the beginning and end, actually, of this scene is sans serif font. It's bold, angular, dangerous. It's also bleeding, but laterally especially, it's bright. And that's quite interesting. It suggests maybe a sinister but fun tone being created. Something that is going to be about death and violence, but taking maybe a slightly more entertaining look at it. These are other areas that we could elaborate on if we chose to. But because we're only doing what we've only just done language now, I'm going to move on at a bit more of a pace. Sorry, when I said language, I meant... no, I didn't mean language. So this shouldn't say language. This should say... I was confused. Content. So another area of media content that we could look at would be representation. And again, we're using what, why, impact, link. Okay. I will probably think of a snazzy way to put that by the time you come into the school. But right now it's why impact link. So what representations do we get here? We don't really care about the representation of the little girl. We don't really care about the representation of the ice cream vendor. They're not important. We're going to look at our representation of a key character. And so through the use of Villanelle, through the use of language, we can see that Villanelle is represented as a strong, sinister character, perhaps a villain or a murderer. Now, strong is an interesting kind of word to put in there. I toyed with it, but I think with the inclusion of the song behind her, with her adapting, with her kind of open disregard for societal norms, strong is probably the word that we want. Okay. It does kind of introduce us perhaps a villain or some kind of murderer. Why does it do this? Now, we've gone over how it does this. So why does it do this? And it's interesting. The vast majority of villains, especially in serial killer shows, are men. You look at Dexter or Hannibal, you look at True Detective or most of Sherlock, and the vast majority of serial killers that we encounter in this style of drama are men. So it's interesting that we've got a woman. And what's the impact of this? It's a fun take on feminism. It is a very feminist piece, and you'll be looking at Eve Pilastri, and that's a much more traditional look at feminism. But I would say that even Villanelle represents a skewed form of feminism. Other forms of media, such as Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman, or The Help, or there's another one that I can't think of right now. There's actually lots of other ones, obviously. Have tried to tackle feminism and sexism, or have tried to support feminism and tackle sexism by giving us female heroes. This female villain is interesting, and perhaps it's even more fun. We rarely see good, strong female villains. Even if you look at Disney are taking away our female villains. They've taken away Maleficent and given us a male villain and a female hero, which is cool. It's an interesting take, and it certainly, again, would count as a feminist piece. Sorry, I'm teaching Maleficent, or I'm making a unit on Maleficent for National 5 now, so I've got that stuck in my head. But I think a strong female villain is something that we don't see often in media, and so this is quite fun. It's quite interesting. It gives us something to get our teeth into. And what other key aspects could we link this into? I would link it in with society. I would link it in with Me Too, a feminist movement growing in popularity during the development of this show. It's interesting to bear this in mind, especially when Villanelle starts massacring men, specifically and almost, I think maybe actually literally, universally men. Can't remember. I'll have to watch the whole thing again. Then we can go on to categories. I know I said I wouldn't, but I'm going to give you a basic rundown of categories. So this is a TV show. So what is it? It's a TV show, a detective drama. It's being used to entertain us using a rare blend of the light-hearted and yet sinister tones. It is a rare blend. The two would not seem to be synonymous, and yet the show pulls it off. Why does it do this? Well, this allows it to push the boundaries of believability a little bit more with its kind of light-hearted element. So where a traditional TV show that went in for the serial killer detective trope, you might wind up with something like Spooks, or maybe something like Luther. This allows a slightly less grim, a slightly more fun exploration of still some very important themes. And the impact of this means that it was very, very popularly received by audiences. It was considered entertaining, and most importantly, it was considered different from what was already on offer in this genre. And the key aspect I would link this in with would be audience. It targeted a wider audience by doing something new, by doing something different, and by grabbing people's attention. Okay. Finally, narrative. Narrative's a little bit more complex than a TV show. You're always left asking yourself, do I look at the narrative for each individual episode, or do I look at the narrative from the very first episode to the very last episode? And the answer really is both. You have to take each piece of media as you find it, so each episode, but you also have to look at the overall narrative and how it fits together. So, if you think about even just this introduction without looking at Eve's scene at all, we get a very quick moment of equilibrium. Villanelle is a dark yet entertaining character who does not seem to appreciate societal norms and is perhaps involved in violence. And that's her norm. There isn't her sitting there panicking, going, "Oh my God, this isn't, right. This, what's happened." This is her norm. She wipes the blood off very calmly. She knocks the ice cream on the girl without a second thought. She walks out without thinking, "Oh, maybe I should stop and say sorry." It's her norm. This is an equilibrium. Why do they do it like this? It hooks us on the character of Villanelle, and that's crucial. She is an alternative villain, and she is what people perhaps enjoy most about the show. So it's so important that we instantly find ourselves, if not entertained by her, intrigued or engaged with her. And as you can see, the impact of this was engaged audiences. And so you can obviously link this in with audience. So, I am sorry, guys, that was not the most fun, however long that was. But I needed to get through it. I needed to remind you of those kind of key aspects so that you can then demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. These are the key aspects contained within content-based analysis, looking at what's going on within a piece of media. You do not need to have this level of depth and detail in every scene. It would take you a lifetime, but you will do it for key scenes. Right? And we'll have a wee think about what is a key scene in one of our upcoming looms. Your homework is to analyse our introduction to Eve in this same way. So for our introduction to Eve, from about 1:30 or from whenever we first meet Eve screaming in her bed to when everyone leaves the meeting room, I want you to give me this level of depth. I want you to give me this level of detail. And I want you to give me a breakdown of language, representation, and narrative as it pertains to that scene. If you want to look at categories too, be my guest. But realistically, you're not going to get much more than I've already put in the categories for Villanelle. I'll expect this to be completed by a week today. Right? I am releasing this at probably be midnight by the time it uploads. But I am releasing it on Wednesday, so I'll expect it to be completed by Wednesday. Anytime on Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. Fine, I don't mind. Just as long as you get it to me by Wednesday. Have I said this on the next slide? I don't know. So I'm going to just quickly say it now. I will be taking registers of all future conference calls. As I've already stated, this is a difficult course. If there are people missing calls and they aren't letting me know why, they aren't letting me know in advance, and they're not asking what they can do to catch up, then there are people who should not be in this class. I'm not interested in people who think this is going to be an easy year or who think it's all just movies and nothing else. Media is a tough subject. It requires a lot of your focus, time, and attention, and I need to know you're going to give that to me. So I'll be taking attendance in any conference calls that we have, and perhaps more pertinent right now is I will also now be taking attendance of what homework I get. So once you submit your homework to me, if I'm happy you made a good effort of it, I will go to my register and I'll put a little green mark in your homework box for this week. If you don't, you'll get a red mark. And if you're not keeping up with your homework, I'll assume that you're also not watching the looms, because that is where I give you your homework. And if you're not watching the looms, again, you shouldn't be in this class. Don't know why I'm saying that now to the people who have clearly just watched the loom. I blame the fact that it's now my third attempt at this. But, better than 4 attempts. So we will start looking at context-based analysis. Before the end of the week, I will release a loom on context-based analysis. I'm afraid it will be much the same as this one. I'll try and make it a little bit more interactive because, frankly, I got bored delivering that. So I do apologise. I should have done more to make it interesting. I'll try and do that with context. I will, in this loom, be referring to the rest of the show a little too, as well as predominantly the introduction and also episode 1 as a whole. It'll come attached with more homework, so you have a little bit of homework here. It will come attached with homework that will probably take you about half an hour as well. And again, I will give you a week for that. I will be releasing up to 2, maybe even 3 looms a week, or certainly we'll have between 2 and 3 looms and conference calls a week. Each one will most likely come with homework. I should be seeing you now. This is me preempting you complaining at me. I should be seeing you for 6 lessons every week just now. That would be 300 minutes, 5 hours. Okay. I would also be issuing you homework once a week that would take you about an hour. So I should have 6 hours of media time with you every week that I don't have. If I release 2 looms, each one of about an hour, 1 conference call of about an hour, and 3 bits of homework of about half an hour to an hour, that will still actually come to under the 6 hours of media that you should be doing a week. All right. I realize it's a lot, but the more we get done now, the more time we'll have to focus on our assignment after summer, and that's really important. If you have any questions, email me. I'll be noting who completes the analysis of Eve like a register, as I've already said. If you don't, then you will be falling behind. I didn't end with a nice thank you for watching this GIF or something like that, but I should have. Other thing, sorry. Buffy, the entire seasons 1 to 7 of Buffy has been released onto More 4, which is fantastic. You'd think I'd planned that, but I had not. Which means that not only can you watch Killing Eve in your own time, you can now watch Buffy. I haven't decided how I'm going to do Buffy. The opening season of Buffy, season 1, is perhaps not fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy it, I'm not going to lie, but as a piece of media, there's maybe slightly less to it. But I would strongly suggest that you at least watch the first couple of episodes. It is a brilliant piece of media, and it genuinely does redefine feminism in the media from its inception to the point that to the end of season 7. So it is well worth watching. It's the cornerstone of feminism in media, in my opinion. Humble opinion. But yeah, you can find that on More 4. So please give that a watch too. Dead handy, dead useful for you, especially because once we're done with Killing Eve, I'm going to start comparing and contrasting it to Buffy and the messages that they are each putting forwards. Above and beyond that, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I do apologise, guys. I am struggling to make these looms interesting because I think I like teaching, having conversations with you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching. Those of you I taught last year thoroughly enjoyed having you in my classroom and having a good back and forth. So I'm really missing that. I will try and think of something that I can do that will make the context-based analysis a little bit more interesting for you next week. I hope you're keeping well, and I look forward to chatting to you soon. All the best.